It is now 7:32, and we're starting this meeting of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. We have a special meeting, so we're not allowed to change the agenda. However, we have a new member, John. I'm not good with last names, so you can help me pronounce it. My name's Jack Henry Davis. Anything over 5 letters, it's a risk.
Well,
So, John, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll all say who we are.
sure. I'm glad to be here. My name's John Flippin. So it's like Flipper the dolphin, but with an N. And I came to Darien about 5 years ago now. And I work at Google. I'm an attorney with YouTube. So this is my first foray into city government and helping out the community. And that's why I wanted to be here. So I'm glad to be here and look forward to working with you.
Welcome.
Thank
So,
you.
um, just I'm Jack Davis. I've lived in town for almost 40 years. I've been chair of this committee for 10. Previously, I was vice chair of the education budget on this committee. And then previous to that, I was just a member. But my first year on the RTM, I was in TGSNA. What just happened? Okay. I'm just going to call Peter. Introduce yourself. Orphanos.
Yep. John, welcome. My name is Peter Orphanos. I'm a litigation attorney by trade. Spent 27 years. After 6 years of law practice, I became an FBI agent for 27 years. I'm now a consultant. Been living in town since '97, so it's been a while. But I've been on the RTM for over 6 years now.
Wonderful.
All
Nice
on this committee.
Yeah. Oh, great. That says a lot.
Pierre, you're next.
Per Sexa. I've been in town for over 30 years. Been involved with a lot of different organizations, including person to person. And I've been on the RTM now for the past year and a bit. And again, all with F&B primarily. So enjoying it.
Charles, you're next.
Nice to meet you, John. Charles Teschner from District 2. We've been in town for 17 years. 3 of our 4 kids graduated from DHS previously. We lived in Switzerland and Germany for 21 years. And I worked for a private equity firm in New York City, where I focus on financial technology.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Louisa. You have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Yes. Hello, my name is Luisa Brackman. I moved to Darien back in just days after 9/11. I have been working in major banks, either in the sales and trading desk and derivatives, and now in risk management. So love this committee. I have been probably 5 years here and always learning from Jack.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Peter.
John, welcome to the committee. My name is Peter Trepay. I've been here for 26 years. I work for a hedge fund in Boston, doing event-driven investing. And this is my second year representing District 1 in the RTM, and I've also been in Finance and Budget both years.
Wonderful. Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth Lane. I've lived in town for 25 years. God, 25 years. And I'm an attorney by trade, but actually have done mostly just volunteer work with the school district. I've been on CDSP, and I've been on the RTM for 6 years and finance and budget the whole time.
Wonderful. A recovering attorney.
Laura, who's currently going by David.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I've been living in Darien for almost 20 years. Very involved in the community, on PTOs, Darien Environmental Group, Music for Youth. I was on the RTM in District 5, and this is my second year on F&B. When I was in District 5, I was on safety, health and safety.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Holly.
Hi, John. Nice to meeting you. This is Holly. I have been in town for 19 years. My two kids finished school from kindergarten to high school at Darien, and I work in Wall Street in risk management. And I have been in this team for 2 years and in RTM for 3 years.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I will say one thing that's funny between Holly and Beth. They live on the same road, like houses away from each other, but they live on opposite sides. So Holly's in one district and Beth is in another.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually.
Bill Dunn.
Hi, welcome. Let's see, I've lived here in Darien now, going on about 30 years. Raised a couple of daughters here. They went through Holmes in middle school and Darien High School. And I've been on the RTM now, going on 5 years, 6 years now, all on F&B. And again, welcome.
Thank you.
And Doug.
Hi, John. I'm Doug Bernacchi. I live on Middlesex Road in Darien. I live in a multi-generational house with my grandchildren, my daughter, my son-in-law, and my wife. And it's a very large house. I'm not originally from Darien. I moved here because my kids moved here and got kind of involved. I'm still learning about the community. I love this community. I think it's incredible. And I know we're going to talk about school board stuff and finances today, but the question I've been trying to get answered since I moved here is how many Darien students go to public school versus private school? In other words, how many go to private school? How many aren't part of our school system? And I have never been able to get an answer to that. So that's kind of my hidden agenda right now to figure that out. And welcome. I look forward to talking to you more in the future.
Thank you. You as well.
I'm a lawyer and an MBA, Georgetown, Notre Dame. My team's not in the college playoffs, so
No,
kind of.
I know. Nor is mine, Alabama. So
they were though. They were.
They were. Yes.
So, John, you're joining our group of attorneys. We actually had two members of our committee, both attorneys, who didn't re-up for the RTM. But this seems to be a committee that ends up with attorneys on it, which for me is really good because they try and keep me out of trouble. So sometimes not successfully. But so welcome aboard on that.
Thank you so much. Look forward to it.
So I'm going to try and go through some things. The first thing is I need a motion to move resolution 26-01, authorization of the 27,000 special appropriation request for updating the property and topography survey for Great Island. Do I have somebody moving that?
So
I have
moved.
Beth, and I have Charles as the second. Okay. I'll give a brief overview of this. The survey that was done during Great Island was an aerial one in order to move forward with the access, which is basically going to be some minor parking, much less than what we saw before. They want to get started on this so that they have a better survey, including what trees and other things like that associated with the parking will be. Hopefully this will be done by March, which will then be given to the people for the RFP so that they can come up and tell us what's going on. The parking will be greatly reduced from that $14 million plan that didn't make it out of the Board of Finance and probably would never have made it out of the RTM either. So I got a range on what this project might be, but I don't really want to give it out because I don't want to, until we come back with estimates, that's there. But these are going to be gravel, some drainage that required, no major bathroom as what was in the other plan, not fixing the other buildings. This is just so that people have access. And hopefully part of the reason of getting this done sooner rather than later is that maybe we can have access by the end of the summer, early September timeframe, at least tentatively. Go ahead, Laura.
My one question is, I know that they started the roadway, they started knocking down some trees. What made them start that and then stop and kind of feel like they need to resurvey?
Because that survey was done only for that area. It was not done for the rest of Great Island. We do not have surveys there. This will only be covering the areas that they intend to increase the roadway or put parking on. There's certain areas within Great Island that probably will require another survey at a later date. But for right now, this is solely so that we can move forward, the town can move forward on access.
And do you know how much smaller the parking lot went from? I don't remember exactly the number of spaces, but did they give you a number of spaces?
We don't have that project yet. That project will come back to us in an appropriation and probably a bonding resolution.
But you said it's significantly smaller, so I thought you had an idea.
The project overall was significantly smaller.
I see. Okay. Thank you so
All right.
much.
If my memory's correct, Laura, I think it was 60 hard spaces and 30 soft spaces is the number that I have in mind.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So while this here, our report will address that. There's something more important that we're going to be addressing in our report. There's $49 million in a bond anticipation note we've had 2 years of the bond anticipation note. And in the April-May timeframe, we're now moving it to 30-year debt. All right. However, if you look at the original plan that unallocated expenses, access, including this $27,000, could have well been put into, as well as the subsequent work that's going to be done, could have qualified for what the original bond authorization was for. There's been a decision, and I know this is something that Jim Palin strongly believes in, that all things associated with Great Island, all expenses, will now be going to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the RTM. As such, when I look at the $49 million and I look at what it was originally allocated for, there may be between $2 to $4 million of expenses that we have not spent nor are encumbered. Encumbered meaning we haven't spent everything on the 23A, but we know that other expenses have to be paid to finish that project. So the question is, how much are they bonding? Because we don't want to bond, let's say it's a $3 million number. We don't want to put into 30-year debt $3 million, especially since most of our debt is 20 years, almost all our debt is 20 years, with the exception of Great Island. Why are we bonding things that we're not going to spend? So what's going to happen is, in the February-March timeframe, the Board of Finance will be looking at that numbers and will probably only bond maybe, and I'm going to come up with rough numbers now, maybe only 46 of the 49 million will go into long-term debt, which in the Rules Committee, I raised, well, where's the other 3 million coming from? Because we have to pay off the bond anticipation note. And I was speaking to Jen Chinesky, the town administrator, and she goes, Jack, I was asking the same thing. And then I realized we got $49 million in cash. So 3 million of that 49 million is sitting in our bank account. And so that 3 million will go to pay down the bond anticipation note, which then will allow us to do 46 million going forward. So while we'll give our report on where we are, we're secondary on this. I think the most important part of our report will be discussing the 49 million, the fact that all future costs will be coming, all future appropriations will be coming from the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the RTM. Now, while I say that, that doesn't mean that there's not a $5,000 expense that doesn't come out of the Board of Finance contingency account. But all main projects or other things that are going on in Great Island will now have that process. It will also adjust for those things that we did not spend on the 49 million will be reduced and paid back to the bondholder, and we will only be bonding the remaining amount of what we anticipate we will be spending to fix the roadway for what we're committed to, and what has been spent. So that's going to be the major part of our report. So I'm mentioning that because I'll write that up. This is a short meeting. So if I'm not there because I'm up in the Board of Selectmen room listening to the presentation of the town administrator for what her budget is, Per, you're going to be giving the report.
Okay.
I mean, I know you're going to be up in that room with me anyway, for as
I was
long as
going
you
to say,
can.
I thought I was going to be in the Board of Selectmen, but
Yeah, I know you were. But
okay.
if the two of us are there, we'll hand it off to somebody else who, to either Peter or Beth to give our report. So the three of you have it. There is a good chance because there's some ethics election and some other discussions, and John wants to talk about something, which means he's not going to be in the Board of Selectmen meeting anymore either. So it may not affect who gives the report, but if I'm still with Pierre up in that Board of Selectmen room, then either Beth or Peter will give our report. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Hey, Jack, I had one question for you.
Sure.
And that is, you were kind enough to send around the spreadsheet that had the 22 or however many areas of responsibility it is. But
Yep.
Great Island is not a line in that spreadsheet. So if Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, et cetera, are going to be focusing on it in a dedicated way, then at some point, the spreadsheet that you sent, right, you would have thought it should have a line for Great Island on it, in my opinion.
Well, it does now. I just wrote it out. That's a very good
Okay.
point. So we should be taking a vote. So all those in favor of passing this, please raise your hand.
Aye.
So Laura, okay, thank you. So it's unanimous, and we can move on to the next thing on the agenda. Okay, that's next thing is I threw out some meetings which were typically the Monday following the Rules Committee. We can't conflict with the Rules Committee because 4 of our members sit on Rules, which is the committee that sets the agenda and does some other things, but primarily sets the agenda for the RTM. I sort of say it's sort of like the Ways and Means without a discussion of any of the topics because that belongs to the committee. So it sets the agenda and also assigns committee of who's primary and who's secondary. And I'm repeating some of this just so that John is brought up to date. But with that, we're going to need some additional meetings. Now, the first set of meetings that we haven't put on the agenda yet, there's a couple through this year and through January that will be deemed special meetings because we haven't given 30-day notice of our agenda. But this is what I do every year, by the way. I go through the calendar and list all the Board of Finance, all the Board of Selectmen, all the budget meetings, all the Board of Ed meetings, rules, and RTM meetings, so we can figure out how we slide in to discuss what they're talking about. The Board of Ed is currently doing a budget meeting tomorrow, on the 20th, on the 27th. I do not know, and I'm going to be speaking to Robin and to, we have a new superintendent, so we have to see how this fits in. In the past, Peter, Beth, and myself met with Liza, Jim Palin, and 3 members of the administration and the Board of Ed to have just a discussion on the budget in an unrecorded meeting because none of us had a quorum. We'd also give a report of what our feelings have been in the past, that Beth and Peter would give based upon the conversations of the committee. And we really didn't deal with numbers. We dealt primarily in process and areas where we thought that process should be improved, such as giving 5-year costs. So for like the astronomy or the sign language, they're giving what the cost of this year's project is, but what would be the 5-year cost, because you're making a commitment for that. And by the way, if you're adding these 3 courses, do you anticipate that you're going to be having a reduction in some other electives that may offset some of the costs over the 5 years? So that would have been a comment that we've made. I don't know if we're making that talk this year, so I have to confirm it. And if it is, when they would be looking for it. So I tentatively put down that we could either meet on the 21st of January or the 28th of January to discuss what we heard on the budget, or if there's any budget comments. That's a Wednesday, also a Wednesday for the 28th. It should be a short meeting because we're only going to be dealing with the Board of Ed. So does anybody have a problem with that meeting? Again, less than a half an hour.
I'd prefer the 21st or the 28th, but I'll make it work.
Fine, it's the 21st. We're going to do this real quick.
Okay, I'm out of town. I'll have to beam in.
I'm sorry?
I will be out of town, but I'll just beam in.
Okay, super.
Yeah, the 21st works.
Okay. John, if you haven't figured out, we have a lot of members of this committee that travel and work. Mike has called in more than one time traveling back from the city. We've also had calls from London, Germany, Japan, I believe, Louisa. So we do everything virtual. All right. Great. We can have a kumbaya at the end of the year at the Goose, but right now we do things virtual.
I'm in Cambodia as we speak, Jack.
Are you really?
Yes.
All right. So I'll add that to the list. That's even better. And I believe you've been elsewhere when you've called in. You're one of our London calls as well.
Yeah, I am.
So I've also run meetings from both Washington, D.C. and Miami.
So this
the other meeting
21st, and it's going to be virtual.
What? Which?
Yes.
That's a day before the Board of Ed votes. It's also, we will have heard the Board of Selectmen initial budget, and I'm going to try on the 21st to get Jen to give us a refresher course on how to use OpenGov. So that's the system that the Board of Selectmen does not issue books. Everything's online. Everyone in this committee ends up with a access to it, as well as a couple of other people on the other RTM committees. But it's always good to refresh our knowledge on how to sign on, how to look on it when you click left and what it gives there, when you click right, what it gives there. So I'm going to try and have Jen give us a refresher course on that. Or if not, at least have a And that's also good, by the way, when we ask people to participate, because they're also home. So Jen, our town administrator, works long hours, and so and has a long commute. So this way she's home and not waiting to the end of our meeting and then first going home. So we'll have the 4th is after that. We have one on the 11th, which is shortly after rules. Beth, I'm going to ask you this. I believe winter break is the 26th through the 20th.
It is. Winter break starts the 14th and ends, essentially on the 16th to 20th, because that's President's Day, all that week.
Okay, fine. So we do not meet on that date. On the 23rd, I typically give an update on the first 6 months of the Board of Ed and the town budgets, because it's important not just to determine, that we look at a budget and then we walk away, but here's the update. And I've also been asked to give an update on the ARPA money that we got, because we had to assign all that money and spend it within a certain period of time. And we weren't able to move it around after, I believe, last year, December 31st to the 25th, or maybe it was the 24th, 2024. So it's just an update on what's going on. Right now, it looks like most of the money is spent. And if we do have any money to return to the federal government, which I really hate since we get so little from the federal government here in Connecticut, it looks like it's currently, the only one I saw was about $1.50 that wasn't spent on one of the projects. So that brings us through February. Then we're going into March, which will have the Board of Finance going on. The Board of Finance statutory date of when the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen have to give them their budget is on March 3rd. And then they will be meeting on the 10th, the 17th, the 24th, and the 31st on budgets. I put down here one meeting for the 18th, which means they will have worked on it for 3 times and heard what they have. And then another one on the 30th, with the last meeting that we would be doing. We have 2. And understand any of these could be canceled depending upon what's going on, but I like to have it on the schedule, is on Wednesday, April Fool's Day, which is the day before their last budget workshop. And the final vote has to be done by Tuesday, April 7th. And so I put one on the 6th because they could just decide to do the vote on the 2nd. So I want to make sure that if we're meeting and we have something to say, we want to be able to communicate that. So I'll add those to the calendar, and we'll go from there.
You said you're adding a meeting on the 18th of March and one on the 30th of March, right?
Correct.
In addition to our meeting on the 9th.
Yes.
Okay.
The 9th will typically address anything that we get from the Rules Committee.
Yeah,
so
no, that's fine. I've got these dates here. And then you mentioned the 6th, right?
The 1st of April
Rules.
and the 6th.
The 6th is rules.
Yeah, that's what.
Oh, is it? All right, I missed putting that down there. All right, so we're not meeting on rules. So we'll meet on the 1st.
So you want to meet on the 1st, 2 days after meeting on the 30th.
Because we want to get our final thoughts in. And the only other day that we could do it is Friday the 3rd. And I don't like meeting on Fridays.
Okay.
Nor do I think anybody here wants to meet on a Friday.
That Friday is Good Friday.
Yeah, and that's Good Friday, I was going to say. So you don't want to do
Matter of fact, I don't know that we can do it on the 1st either, come to think of it.
And the 6th is Easter Monday, so.
Yeah, this Let me take a look at that because the first is Passover also. First night of Passover.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah, so
we're going to meet on the 30th.
let's be efficient on the 30th.
Yeah, and the rest is we'll just have to let them do what they're doing. Hopefully we'll make our comments long before that.
Okay.
Okay, the 2 April meetings are done. We have one. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, you have rules on the 6th.
Yeah, I have our April meeting on the 13th, the week after the rules.
Yeah, I did. I put that one in. So, yep. Okay, so I'm taking off the 2 April meetings that I was looking to add. We will meet on the 28th of April. And then our budget meeting is in May. And I usually like to have a second meeting on the 4th, which is about a week later, just in case we believe there should be any changes. All right.
Right.
So that's the rest of the year is fine because we're just meeting a week after rules for everything else. But that should be our budget meetings for the year. So that's done. I'll add that on. Yeah, I knew that the other one was Passover, and I saw it was Good Friday, which was also the holidays came early this year, which is sort of lousing up our budget meetings. But it is what it is. Okay. Takes care of that. Next is for those who've had I'll take anybody's Beth, Peter, initial thoughts on the Board of Education's 3.88 budget.
Well, my first thoughts are, I don't know if any of you watched the link with the meeting that Jack sent out. It was the shortest and most succinct superintendent's initial summary presentation of budget that I have ever seen in 10 years of seeing them. It was a delight, honestly, because he covered everything without belaboring it. And obviously the detail is in the coming meetings, but which are tomorrow, next Tuesday. You get the idea, the Tuesday after that. But we haven't had a superintendent present a 3.88 budget in a long time. And it was all very clear where it was coming from. And it's, for the most part, coming from the contract with the teachers that called for a percentage increase in salary. So honestly, there wasn't much to think about, except on the capital side, we are now starting to hear rumblings about Middlesex and what needs to be done to Middlesex now that we've touched pretty much every other school. So that's something on the horizon.
I was speaking to Dennis Maroney, who after the Board of Ed meeting, and he's the chair of the Board of Ed facilities group. Mm-hmm. And one of the things on the budget is they're working on Middlesex this year, and they're starting to determine what needs to be done for Darien High School, which means eventually they're going to have to go back to Tokenique. So we can redo all of our schools in a 10-year period, which really is really good financial planning for those who are around in 20 years. I'll be about 93. I shouldn't still be on the RTM at that time. But it's, I don't like that we're doing it all in a very short period of time. Not to say that we shouldn't have done it before, but that is a concern of mine, of doing things that are pretty much committing future residents of Darien to a significant investment down the road. But yeah, go ahead, Beth. I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue.
Honestly, that was about it. other than that, I'm like looking forward to hearing the presentations on individual pieces of the budget just to see what's happening in each area. But for the most part, there were no surprises in the budget, which was delightful.
A pleasure. Yeah, I think Beth covered it all. Not much to add, but what I liked from a process point of view was tying most of the changes to 4 strategic pillars. And so there's a real sense of, if we're increasing the budget in certain areas, we understand the reason why that increase is being asked for, and it's on solid ground.
Yeah, I will add one of the things that, because he and I have had a conversation, I found it to be very refreshing that if you listen to a Board of Ed meeting, and I typically go through, don't listen to things on curriculum and other things like that, and, because that's not my interest as I'm looking at the financials. But when he's talking about why we're doing something or why he wants something done, he's citing research studies from major educational colleges or organizations. And he talks as if he's an educator, not just an administrator. And I find that to be rather refreshing and hasn't been around for a while in who we've had running our schools. Now, we had some problems, which had some other things going on, but definitely when he's talking as an educator, which is really good. So there's a new packet that I sent around for what will be discussed tomorrow. I will continue to try and provide videos for the meetings, because I know not everyone gets to go to their Tuesday meetings. And I typically, with all my kids, what I failed to say, I have 4 kids, but my youngest is 32. My oldest is actually, at this stage of the game, he's 34. My oldest is 41. So it's been some time that I get to get all the diseases that the kids would bring home. So when I go in and meet with parents, it's like walking into a petri dish. So yeah. So I understand if people don't go there so that they maintain their health. But I will be there tomorrow. Okay, so that goes there. Yeah, I think that the budget presentation was really well explained. The other thing that there's a change in is they're going very similar to the Board of Selectmen. And a number of years ago, instead of listening to every little cost center on the Board of Selectmen and having the harbor master come and explain their $2,000 budget, they're only going for the big hits here. And so we're going to hear about instruction, curriculum, special ed, the schools, and a couple of other things there. And we might not be listening to music or art. They'll be incorporated, but we're not having everyone coming up and do their presentation on the Super Saturdays, which means we're really dealing with the main parts. John, you'll hear us talk about moving the needle with a grand list of approximately $11 billion actually over. In order to change 1 basis point on our mill rate, we would have to identify, or they would have to identify, $110,000 to make a change. So typically, over the years, when I've looked at their budget, I really don't care about the $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 items. I only look at the cost centers that tend to have more than a 4% increase to see what's going on there, even if it's a small one.
Okay.
And if it's really like they're increasing by $7,000 and therefore they have a 20% increase, I don't care.
Yeah.
And that's how we should look at these budgets.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
So that's good, and we'll see how that works out. Okay, that brings us to item number 5. John, we refer to John Zagroski typically as JZ.
Okay.
Because nobody's able to spell Zagroski. Definitely somebody with the last name of Davis. So JZ approached the Rules Committee on a project that he talked about a little bit in December and again at our last Rules Committee, that he's looking for efficiencies in government. And the RTM is involved because any change to the charter or a change in the ordinance is solely controlled by the RTM. That's our job, other than being the second budgetary authority, which is in the ordinance that we just changed. Nobody else can change an ordinance or the charter without going through the RTM and us approving it. But I'm writing something to John because I think if he's really going to look at this, and I'll give you 2 examples of things that need to be done, it's not just increasing the efficiency of government, and I'm going to refer to Beth, it's the effectiveness. So what's that legal term you gave me that I'm never going to pronounce for effectiveness?
Efficacy?
Yeah, that's it. So to me, it's both of those things. And some of the things that I'm going to be recommending to John, and I suggest that everyone here participates as well, is there's things that can improve both the efficiency and effectiveness of government that do not require any change to an ordinance or the charter. And those should be addressed as well. So I just want to go through a couple of quick ones. One we were starting to work on, but then our town administrator left, so I had to put it on the side. If either the Board of Finance or the RTM rejects an operating budget, there's nothing in state statutes that say, what do we do? Now, the wives' tale that has been around for a long time was, oh, well, you're just starting at your prior year's budget, and then you have to come back and get the next budget approved. Well, that's not in state statute. So either in the education side or in the town side. So we have to write ordinances of what the town of Darien will do should such a case of that happen. And I will remind everyone, when the Board of Finance is looking at any of these budgets, they're looking at the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen budgets. Once they approve a budget and it comes to the RTM, we're looking at the Board of Finance's budget. It's no longer a Board of Ed or the Board of Selectmen that get involved. We're actually talking to the Board of Finance, hence that if the RTM, for whatever reason, again, we can make cuts to it, but if for some reason the whole operating budget is rejected, the negotiations is not with the Board of Ed or the Board of Selectmen. The negotiations between the RTM is with the Board of Finance. So we're going to put together a team, which I know John knows when I mentioned this to him, that will include members of the Board of Finance, Board of Ed, our committee, and the town administrator, director of finance, to figure out what makes the most sense so that we at least have the ordinance in our ordinances, should that occur, with the intent that it never should. Because we do have the capability of cutting a Board of Ed or cutting a Board of Selectmen budget or changing capital for that matter. So, but we need something in the ordinance. So that's one that does require ordinances. I one time raised police false alarm fund. Kate Bush and I were working on a solution that still would have given the police commission funds, but out of the funds that they currently have for the false alarm fund, and understand the town pays for all of the police that are going to a false alarm, different from the fire false alarm where they're volunteers, and so they're a different animal than this. But there's some expenses that are currently being funded by those false alarms that really belong in the police budget. One of them is the K9 unit. That's a town expense and really should be there. So that's one that might have a change to an ordinance. Here's some that don't. The RTM has never had a representative on a Board of Ed building committee. That will be stopping. I will be speaking to John that all future Board of Ed building committees has an RTM representative there. I'm not going to get into the rationale for that, but everybody else is represented, Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, Board of Finance, and we also, as part of the two budget-making authorities, should be there as well. The second thing is, I want to tighten up the charter for the Board of Ed building committees. The reason is that building committee is a town committee, not a Board of Ed committee. And I want in the charter specifically that anything that might affect one of the other schools needs to be returned to the Board of Ed for their approval, because that committee doesn't have the authority to effectuate the budget of the Board of Ed, because we have that philosophy, if you do something to one elementary school, you do it to all five. And so there has been an incident where something was done in Ox Ridge. It ended up going into HHR project. It ended up having a subsequent appropriation going to deal with Darien High School, Middlesex, and Tokenique. But the initial charge was not approved by the Board of Ed. Now, I'm not questioning what it was. It was a security area, but it ended up costing $1.5 million. And so we want to make sure that the committees understand if you're doing something that might affect the other schools, it has to go through the typical Board of Ed process. So the Board of Ed is agreeing to include this in their future capital expenses. I'm going to be asking for a postmortem on all bonding issues, major bonding issues. What was the construction contingency? What was the owner contingency, which is us, the town? What is the grant that we're anticipating to get back? If those contingencies were used, what were they used for? And since we have to give an appropriation for the full amount, even though we know we're getting some of these monies back, how much did we really bond? So if we approved something for $65 million and the contingencies were $5 million, and that wasn't spent, and we got $10 million back from the state, then how much did we bond? Because we probably shouldn't have been bonding more than $50 million. And with the authorization of debt, and we have a lot that's coming out down the road, we want to understand what that is. The suggestion is that that's handed to the board. Of a formal presentation, more detailed one, is handed to, it isn't, oh, we did this nice. I'm talking about real numbers. Goes to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance for presentation, and that analysis is given to the RTM Finance and Budget Committee, which will report on it to the full RTM. That's our job. The other thing is in listening to certain other boards and commissions discuss certain things, and I'm not going to mention which ones. But they have no idea what the RTM does and where their authorization stops and where ours begins. And so there's a need to speak to some of these boards and explain. I've heard somebody say, well, we can do this without the RTM. And the answer is, no, you can't. So rather than them spinning wheels, I think an education is appropriate. Again, no need to change an ordinance on this, but it does make government more effective and efficient. The last is on the acquisition of Highland Farms. The chair of PZ&H and myself were involved in the purchase and looking at the purchase agreement. We were not involved in Great Island to that extent. And in fact, myself and Jenny Schwartz, who was on our committee at that time, had to do the only 5-year pro forma statement that was ever created for that acquisition, because the rest of it was a back of the envelope. In fact, we never got the formal finances that Jim talked about frequently. So we had to do that. This last acquisition for the Coons Park, having done acquisitions for, at one time, having done acquisitions of 2 of the largest FDIC bank failures and doing joint ventures for both Chase and MasterCard, I understand how to put together a 5-year pro forma statement. I also understand how to put together a package to get things through the RTM. So does Amy Zavatakis. And if any of my team had walked in with what we were handed for the Coons lot, I would have called it a blooming train wreck. We had to go scurrying around. Now the acquisition made sense, but the package to go and present it to the RTM was insufficient. And part of the reason you involve members of the RTM is to ensure that a proper package is put together so we can get this through. And certain questions that were on easements or, what the real financials are or other things like that are put together in a proper acquisition package. And I actually think that there's members of the RTM who are more familiar with having done that than the town administrators or some of the people who are participating. So that's one of the other things that I think, I'm not saying that we're going out and buying things, but that's something that we'll be talking to John about. So I just wanted to present that. John hasn't heard those yet, but maybe if he listens to our meeting and if it's listed in what we talked about, it may be in the report of what was discussed at this meeting. So I just want to put that out there. We're also, and I'm going to go to something else before I go to the committees.
Hey, Jack, I think Laura wanted to say something.
Oh, Laura,
I was
sorry.
just wondering, how do you decide whether to update an ordinance versus just kind of look at an efficiency and the ordinance doesn't have to be updated? How do you distinguish between the two?
There's 2 ways. Number one, if we're changing what the rights were, so like I'm going to go to the sewer authority because they're looking at that system that was tabled by the RTM, and they're supposed to come back to get the clean water out of the wastewater. So there was a discussion there of whether or not it should be a fine. Well, if it's a fine, that's an ordinance. But also somebody suggested, why don't we just make it a fee? Then we don't have to go to the RTM. And fortunately, there was a discussion. If you're charging somebody a fee for violating the law, what they're doing is paying you a fee, which gives them permission to continue to violate. A fine is different. So we have the right to argue that point. And fortunately, that was part of the points that were made. But part of the ordinances is when we changed Appendix B, where'd John go? John, that's one of the things that you might want to look at. I'll send you the final document if I can find it again. But that defines what the roles of the RTM are. And so there's certain things that we specifically put in there, such as the RTM has the right to look at anything within their purview and initiate that within the project. It doesn't need to be assigned by rules. It doesn't need to be assigned by the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Ed for that matter. It also gave some other definitions that are in there. So if we were changing the definition of something, to have a quorum in the RTM with 100 members, it used to be 50 members. We changed it to 51. All right, because that's really a majority. If we have a vote that's, 8 in favor, 8 against, that vote fails. So the quorum should reflect that as well, even though Robert's rules allows either one of them to happen. So those are the nuances that will go there. Usually Wayne gets involved with this on some of the things, and we have a committee, TGS&A, that will be very active in looking at these things. But some of the things that John is possibly suggesting will need technical and subject matter expertise that may not be in TGS&A. So you will see other committees assigned to actually work on the groundwork to then throw it over the fence to TGS&A to work with Wayne on the ordinance side of things. So here's one of the things that is starting to be discussed. At one time when we had under, this just shows I've been around for a while, when we had under $100 million in debt, we were trying to keep our debt service on an annual basis pretty level. So we would pay interest only on the first 2 years of a 20-year bond because we knew what was coming in, we knew what was coming off, and that way we could manage the debt that was going on and keep it between $10 and $12 million, which is what the goal was. That's good, perhaps, when you're under $100 million of debt. It's not good when you're $200 to $300 million of debt. The increase of doing 2 years of bands, which is interest only, and then throw on another 2 years of interest only for a 20-year, says that not only are you increasing your interest expense over the life of that bond, but you're also now only paying principal from year 3 through 20, which is also increasing our costs. And so maybe it's time to relook at that. Some rough calculations is this could be costing the town millions of dollars on significant debt that we're going to be coming forward on. And while it's nice to manage to a mill rate, the town is also known for managing for long-term financial stability. And on some of the debt that we have coming forward over the next couple of years, it could be as much as 75 to 90 million on Middlesex. We haven't bonded everything on HHR. We have 46 million potentially that's finally going out to debt. We really want to do 4 years of interest only on that 46 million, and then over the next 28 years be paying off principal. That's adding a lot of costs to the town. And so that needs to be quantified, and the Board of Finance needs to look at that again. I know there's a member on the Board of Finance who's been really pushing this as well. So that may be a harder fight than we think, but we, at least from our perspective, have the right to raise that. So that's on future bonding. So now for John. In Appendix B, the RTM Finance and Budget Committee has a liaison with every other committee other than TGS&A on the financial side of their budget. So when we're looking at budget, there's certain areas that we're primary on. In other words, nobody else is looking at it other than us. So the library is one of them, the library grant. There's a couple of other grants, debt service, federal grants, fund balance, grand list, and collection rate. Those are all, F&B is really the only one who's looking at it. Now, we'll be presenting high level, but each of the committees have a responsibility to report on the technical aspects. So Public Works will be reporting on Public Works, Park and Rec will report on the Park and Rec, the Harbor Master, and all the things that are underneath there. Amy Zavatakis will report on the land use boards and the building committee, because there's 2 for, as well as the income associated with it. Public health and safety has a lot of stuff, because it not only covers mental health, it covers the health department, it covers the youth commission, it covers the seniors, it covers the police, the EMS, and the fire departments, which are volunteer, where we pay for the fire engines and do some of the standard costs, and they pay and do other things. So we assign people in our own committee to work on it, to work in conjunction with that committee to hear what they're saying. All right, we can disagree, mind you. It's not infrequent that the chair of the Park and Rec Commission has actually disagreed with how we've moved money around and made cuts to Park and Rec, or proposed cuts. And then we work in conjunction with the Board of Finance members who are also assigned to this. So we want to have communications prior to their final vote. It's too late to try and get something adjusted after they voted on it, because the horse has always left the barn. Our goal as a committee is approximately 5 minutes after the Board of Finance votes on that budget, we're prepared to vote on it as well. Now, if we've disagreed with them, we can propose whatever changes we may want to do. But they at least should know what changes we are uncomfortable with and what we might be proposing. So in order to do that, we have to do the upfront work, and we have to communicate with the other committees and work with them. And then also work with the Board of Finance members, where I'll get the final list from Jim Palin of who he's assigned to go and work on this stuff. So on today, and we lost some members here, and I know Charles P. couldn't make this meeting, so this may be a military assignment. You know, if you're not here, you get assigned. We have to figure out what people want to do. So I'm going to go through the list, see if there's any changes. Some of this we might be looking at, but they may not be talking about in, you know, big budget terms when the Board of Selectmen go through their budget. So, Will and Mike on that. That's what you did last year, if I recall. And if you don't mind, I'll keep you on that.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Louisa and I were on the Land Use Committee, which is always a great meeting because Jeremy Ginsburg goes to Amy's meeting and does a really good discussion of what's going on in the meeting. And we usually sit there and listen because he's really good. Holly and we're on Alice. We're on. Yes. I need some people to look at human services. So do we have any volunteers? That includes the senior center. There was some reorganization there. Some of the youth services that just went under that area. So does anybody want to volunteer to look at that? John, I'm assigning you with somebody who is experienced, not to just throw you into the
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
So If not, I start assigning people, and that's really bad. Oh, good. So, Beth, do you want to take on human services? It deals with mental health, youth, and other things like that. Fits right into the Board of Ed stuff.
Why not?
Okay. So, John, I'm going to put you on that because working with Beth is a good deal. All right.
All right. Look forward to it, Beth.
General government, I have Holly and myself. Public Works, I think I had Charles and Peter on that last year. Peter, were you on Public Works?
I was on Public Works last year.
What? I'm sorry?
I was
say
on.
that again. Say that again. Yeah, okay. So I'm keeping both of you on there. Park and Recreation, I had Mike and Bill on that.
Keep me on that.
Yes, that's good.
Thank you.
We have two big ones. We have police, which is probably one of the larger budgets. So I need two people to look at police. Laura, you want to go on police? I want to put that. Doug, I'll put you.
I don't know what all the choices are, but
I actually had you down for things, so. But I'm going to join also on that one because with both of you first going on it, I have some knowledge, so I can help you both go through that. I need somebody to look at fire and emergency services. Peter, I really should put you on. That's all right. Peter Orfanos. Do you want to look at the fire department? And you got to unmute.
You're still on mute, Peter.
Thumbs up. Do you want to be
That's
on?
fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Hey, Jack.
I mean, you can put me on police too. I don't have a conflict of interest anymore.
For those who, Peter was an FBI agent. So,
do you
that a
need a
conflict
second
of
on
interest?
fire and emergency?
yeah, Pierre, do you want to take it?
Yeah, as long as Peter's there, I'm sure I can learn something.
Okay. On library, it's Louisa and Pierre. You're both on that?
Yeah.
On the Board of Ed, for education personnel and related expenses, I have Beth, Peter, Orfanos, and Mike. For capital and equipment leases, I have Beth and myself. For non-educational services, I have Peter Orfanos and Doug. On grants and revenue, I still think that there's a risk on the Title I grant because the town is planning to get $900,000, and that's covering 17 employees, and including paras in there. And with the current government, I'm not sure what money's actually going out, regardless of what Congress has authorized. So I have Peter Orfanos and mine on the grant. On debt service for the town school and sewer, I have Louisa and myself. Federal and state grants, I have myself and Pierre. For fund balance, I have myself and Charles. I don't know, Pierre, do you want to also work on that? Or just to get a little better understanding?
Yeah, I'm happy to work on that too.
Okay. And then on grand list and collection rate, I have Charles Powers and myself. And in Great Island, I have Charles T. I said it's added, and I knew who I want to assign to that. So, do you want to be on the Great Island thing, Charles?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. To at least keep us abreast of
Can I
what's going
also
on
be?
there. Yes. Again, we're looking at budget on those things, not the other word I would use, but you have to be in New Yorker to understand it. Not the other mishigash that goes on.
Okay.
So, you know,
We're not on
that's
the Great Island Committee that's doing
right.
the
That's
execution.
off the side. We're looking at money.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So that takes care of that. We're moving right along. So we also discussed future bonding. We owe you a bunch of minutes that we'll do at our next meeting. And with everything else, we can't actually, if there's any other things that somebody wants to talk about, send me an email and I will add it to our next meeting. But with everything else being done, I want to thank you all. We ran a little over an hour, which, we're trying to keep this under an hour. But we had a lot to cover today, at least from an organization perspective. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll take Per and I'll take Beth. I took you before. I'll take Doug. All right. Is that all in favor?
Aye.